You already have the foundation. You already know how to move, how to occupy space, how to create presence through deliberate slowness. And in the second video, you learned the intermediate techniques, how immobility creates pressure, how visual hierarchy automatically places you above others, how pauses make your words gain disproportionate weight, how emotional ambiguity keeps everyone around you trying to decipher you. But now, the moment of truth has arrived. Because up to this point, everything you've learned happens at a distance. You control your body, your space, your expressions, but there's still a physical barrier between you and the people you want to influence. And as long as that barrier exists, as long as you don't cross the boundary of someone else's personal space, you have power, but not absolute power. So in this third video, we're going to enter the most advanced and most dangerous territory of all, strategic physical touch and calculated invasion of personal space. And look, I left this for last on purpose because without the foundation of the first two videos, these techniques can backfire and destroy your credibility instead of building it. But now that you've mastered the basics and intermediates, you're ready to learn how to literally put your hands on someone in a way that establishes instant and undeniable hierarchy. How to enter someone's personal space and make that person accept your intrusion as natural, because your presence has already communicated that you have that right. In the next few minutes, you'll learn 11 techniques about personal space as territory, touch that communicates authority, when and where to touch, how long to maintain physical contact, and how to defend your own space when someone tries to dominate you. Machiavelli knew that the calculated use of physical force, not violence, but assertive physical presence, was what separated princes who only talked from princes who truly commanded. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that humans are corporeal animals, and bodily control is social control. So get ready, because this video will give you tools that very few people consciously master. And once you know them, you'll never interact the same way again. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos. It's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. And if you're subscribed to the channel, we have a bonus in the first pinned comment. There's a fascinating phenomenon in physics that applies perfectly to human interactions. Concentrated energy is infinitely more powerful than dispersed energy. Think of the difference between diffuse light and a laser. Both are light, but a concentrated laser can cut steel, while diffuse light can barely illuminate a room. The same logic applies to human presence. When you're constantly moving, gesturing nervously, adjusting your posture, making expressions that change every second, you're dispersing your energy in all directions. The result? Diluted impact, weak presence, non-existent authority. Now think of someone perfectly still. All of that person's energy is concentrated, contained, compressed into a solid and dense presence. There's no leakage, no dispersion. And when energy is concentrated like that, it becomes palpable. People literally feel the presence even before interacting. It's that feeling of there's someone important in the room that you've probably experienced without being able to explain exactly why. What you were picking up was concentrated energy through controlled immobility. Machiavelli observed that princes who commanded true respect possessed this quality of concentrated presence. They didn't need to be constantly doing something to be noticed. Their very stillness commanded attention, and this happens because stillness concentrates energy and intimidates at a primal level that escapes people's conscious control. They simply feel that they must pay attention, that they must be cautious, that they are facing something powerful. And there's an even deeper psychological aspect to this. Immobility creates emptiness, and the human brain is terrified of emptiness. We are programmed to look for patterns, to interpret signals, to predict behavior. When someone is in constant motion, we have constant data to process. This person is nervous. I can see it in their gestures. They're insecure. I can see it in their restlessness. They're seeking approval. I can see it in their adjustments. Easy to read, easy to categorize, easy to discard. But when someone is perfectly still, our brain goes into a state of alert because there isn't enough data to make reliable predictions. What is this person thinking? What are they going to do? Why are they so calm? And in the absence of clear information, the brain tends to fill the void with projections, usually projections of power and danger. It's a survival mechanism. Better to assume that the still and unreadable person is dangerous than to discover too late that they were. So stillness not only focuses your energy, it forces others to perceive you as more powerful than you may objectively be. It's the calculated use of psychological force through the strategic management of nonverbal information. You control how much of yourself is legible, and the less legible you are, the more power people project onto you. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that humans prefer to avoid conflict with the unknown and unpredictable, so treat these people with more caution and respect. Now let's move on to the practical application that will give you this ability to intimidate through stillness. The next time someone confronts you, challenges you, or tries to pressure you into a quick response, simply freeze. Not in the sense of panic, but in the sense of deliberate immobility. The person speaks, perhaps even aggressively or urgently, and you remain still. Maintain eye contact. We'll talk more about this in the next techniques, but don't react with your body. Don't gesture defensively, don't back down, don't move nervously. Just observe in total stillness for a few seconds. That will seem like an eternity to the other person. Let the silence and stillness do the work. What happens neurologically on the other side? Growing discomfort, increasing anxiety, second thoughts about the aggressive approach. The person begins to doubt, did I overreact? Why is this person so calm? Should I be worried? And frequently, more frequently than you imagine, the person will back down, soften their tone, or even apologize, all because your stillness created a psychological pressure that they cannot withstand. Machiavelli understood that it is better to be feared than loved in contexts of power, but the most sophisticated way to be feared is not through obvious aggression. It is through that intimidating stillness that forces others to confront their own insecurities, reflected in the emptiness of your immobility. Constant adaptability means practicing this technique in progressively more challenging situations until it becomes your automatic response to any attempt to pressure or dominate you. Now we arrive at one of the most subtle yet brutally effective concepts in this entire strategy of dominance through presence, becoming emotionally unreadable. And the gateway to this is completely eliminating the nervous gestures that constantly betray your internal state. Look, most people are an open book. You can read anxiety, insecurity, fear, need for approval, all through the micro gestures they make unconsciously. That quick touch to the nose when they say something they're unsure about. Adjusting their glasses when they're uncomfortable. A hand on the back of their neck when they're insecure. Rubbing their face when they're anxious. Each of these gestures is a direct window into their internal emotional state, and people with a dominant presence learn, consciously or unconsciously, to read these signals and use them to their advantage. But when you eliminate these gestures, when you control every movement of your body to the point of not involuntarily leaking anything, you become a black box. People look at you and can't be sure what you're feeling, thinking, planning. And this uncertainty is uncomfortable for them, but comfortable for you, because while they are spending mental energy trying to decipher you, you are calmly observing them reveal themselves through nervous gestures they can't control. Machiavelli spoke about the importance of the appearance of virtue. You don't need to be virtuous, but you need to appear to be. Same logic here. You don't need to be internally calm, although with practice you will be, but you need to appear absolutely calm, eliminating any physical sign of nervousness. There's a specific list of nervous gestures you need to identify and eliminate from your own behavior. First, touching your face. Any hand movement toward your face, rubbing, scratching, adjusting your hair, touching your nose, nervously running your hand through your beard, is interpreted as a sign of discomfort and uncertainty. Eliminate it. Second, unnecessary clothing adjustments. Repeatedly fixing your tie, adjusting your sleeve, smoothing your shirt. Each adjustment says, "I'm not comfortable in my own body." Eliminate it. Third, self-soothing movements like rubbing your hands, massaging your neck, hugging yourself with your arms crossed defensively. All are clear signs of anxiety. Eliminate them. Fourth, fidgeting with objects. Repeatedly clicking a pen, aimlessly fidgeting with your phone, twirling a ring on your finger, drumming your fingers. All of this screams, "I don't know what to do with this nervous energy." Eliminate it completely. And fifth, rapid changes in facial expression, especially nervous smiles or approval-seeking expressions after every statement you make. Maintain a controlled, neutral expression on your face. When you systematically eliminate these 5 types of nervous gestures, you remove the windows that people use to read your emotional state. And suddenly you become unpredictable, mysterious, powerful, not because you've changed internally yet, but because you've controlled what you're projecting externally. Here's an exercise that will accelerate your mastery of this technique. For an entire week, discreetly record video on your phone during conversations or meetings, obviously respecting privacy and legality. The other people don't need to appear, just you. At the end of the day, watch the videos in fast forward and mark each time you make a nervous gesture. It will be painful to see how many you do without realizing it. But this brutal awareness is the first step. The following week, before each important interaction, tell yourself, no touching my face, no adjusting clothes, no fidgeting with objects, hands resting or with a clear purpose, neutral face. And then consciously monitor during the interaction. Each time you feel the urge to make a nervous gesture, take a deep breath and let the urge pass without acting on it. With practice, you will begin to create a space between the nervous impulse and the physical action, and in that space lies your power. Decisions based on real human nature show that whoever controls their own reactions controls the interaction. Machiavelli understood that the end justifies the means when it comes to establishing authority, and becoming unreadable by eliminating nervous gestures is one of the most sophisticated and effective methods. Constant adaptability means transforming this conscious control into an unconscious habit until your naturally unreadable presence becomes who you are, not something you perform. And when you reach that level, you will have access to advantages in negotiations, conflicts, and power interactions that most transparent people will never experience. We've now arrived at a technique so subtle that most people will never consciously realize you're using it, but so powerful that it will completely change the dynamics of any interaction. The strategic tilting of the head to create visual hierarchy. And look, this taps into something so primitive in the human brain that it borders on instinct. Think about how primates establish dominance. The dominant individual literally looks down on subordinates, while subordinates look up seeking approval. This is ingrained in our social DNA. When you force someone to look up to meet your eyes, you are activating ancestral circuits of hierarchical submission in that person's brain. It doesn't matter if you are both the same height. The relative position of the head creates the perception of differential height. If you tilt your chin slightly down, not exaggerated, just a few degrees, and keep your eyes looking slightly upwards, you force the other person to raise their gaze to meet you, and in this subtle movement of looking up, their brain triggers, "I'm looking up, therefore this person is above me in the hierarchy." It's automatic, unconscious, and brutally effective. Machiavelli observed that princes never looked up at anyone, always from a level or top down, because they intuitively understood that whoever looks down commands, whoever looks down seeks approval. And this visual geometry of power continues to operate today with the same force as 500 years ago. Let's break down the exact mechanics, because the details make all the difference between looking powerful and looking ridiculous. It's not about tilting your head back exaggeratedly as if you were sniffing something off the ceiling that looks arrogant and artificial. It's a subtle downward tilt of the chin, maybe 5 to 10 degrees at most. The effect is that your eyes naturally look slightly above the straight line. When someone speaks to you, instead of lifting your entire face to look directly at them, which puts you on visual equality, you keep your chin slightly down and only your eyes go to the other person. This creates that penetrating and assessing gaze that is characteristic of natural leaders. Now combine this with actual height when possible. If you are sitting and someone approaches, don't stand up immediately. Let the person stand while you remain seated, but with this head tilt. You are physically shorter, but the position of your head compensates and even reverses the perception of hierarchy. If you are both sitting, adjust your chair, if possible, to be slightly higher, and then use the head technique. If you're standing, position yourself where any unevenness in the ground works in your favor, or simply use the tilt of your head to create the perception of greater height. The calculated use of geometric force in non-verbal communication is an art that separates amateurs from masters. And here's the practical application with an important warning. This technique needs to be used subtly and in the right context, otherwise it becomes a caricature. It's not for use with close friends in casual settings, then you'll just look strange. It's for use in power situations, negotiations, important meetings, when someone challenges you, when you need to establish authority. Practice in front of the mirror. Neutral head position versus slightly lowered chin with eyes looking down. See the difference? In the neutral position, you seem approachable and egalitarian. With a lowered chin, you seem evaluative and superior. Both have their place, but when you need a dominant presence, the second is unbeatable. Now practice in real interactions. In the next meeting where you need to give an important opinion, before speaking, adjust your head to the power position, slightly lowered chin, eyes looking slightly down at the participants. Speak in this position. Observe how people react with more deference, interrupt less, take your words more seriously. Machiavelli understood that decisions based on real human nature include recognizing that visual hierarchy triggers social hierarchy. Constant adaptability means learning when to use this technique, power contexts, and when not to use it, intimate contexts, and executing it with enough subtlety that people feel the effect without consciously identifying what you're doing. And when you master this, you'll have a powerful tool that literally makes people look up to you, even when you're on the same level. Let's delve even deeper into this dynamic of visual hierarchy, because it carries a psychological power that goes far beyond what it seems on the surface. When you force someone to look up to meet your eyes, you're not just creating a favorable geometry, you're literally making that person perform physical submission. And here's the brutal detail. The brain doesn't completely distinguish between performance and reality. When you make the body perform a submissive action, looking up, the brain begins to accept the emotional state that normally accompanies that action. It's the same principle as when you force a smile, and after a few seconds, you start to feel genuinely a little happier. The body influences the mind. So when someone needs to look up to meet you, even if it's only a few degrees, that person's brain is receiving bodily feedback of "I am in an inferior position, I need to look up at the authority." And this feedback accumulates throughout the interaction, creating a dynamic where the person unconsciously treats you as a hierarchical superior. Machiavelli observed that effective princes controlled even the tiniest details of interactions because they knew that small accumulated signals create great perceptions, and forcing visual hierarchy through head position is one of those small signals that has an impact disproportionate to the size of the gesture. There's a specific technique that further amplifies this effect, combining head tilt with strategic heights in the physical environment. If you control the space, your home, your office, even where you choose to sit in a cafe, you can create situations where you naturally find yourself in a visually superior position. For example, if you're going to have an important conversation in your space, choose a chair that's a few centimeters higher than the visitors. It doesn't have to be obvious. 3 or 4 centimeters already make a significant difference. The person sits down, and without consciously realizing it, needs to look slightly upwards to find you. You add the head tilt on top of that, and the power asymmetry becomes even more pronounced. Or if you're standing and talking, position yourself in a place where the floor has a slope favorable to you, even if it's just a step. Or lean against a table counter that puts you at a slightly higher height. These are millimeter adjustments in spatial geometry that have enormous psychological effects. And the most fascinating thing is that this works even when the person is aware of what's happening. The primitive brain responds to visual signals independently of what the rational mind knows. The calculated use of spatial and postural strength creates advantages that accumulate silently throughout negotiations, conflicts, and the establishment of authority. And here's an even more advanced application, using this technique defensively when someone tries to establish visual superiority over you. Have you noticed how people with a dominant presence often stand when you're sitting, forcing you to look up? Or how they choose to sit in higher chairs? When you notice this happening, you have a few counter-strategies. First, simply don't look up. Keep your head in a power position, chin slightly down, and force the person to look down to meet you. This creates visual tension that often makes the person adjust their position. Second, if the person is standing and you are sitting, don't keep looking up to talk. Either stand up, matching the height, or continue what you were doing and speak casually without making much eye contact, communicating that the attempt at visual dominance didn't work. Third, if you realize that the chair position offered to you is disadvantageous, politely reposition yourself to something more favorable. Decisions based on real human nature include recognizing when you're being manipulated through visual hierarchy and having the courage to reject the submissive position. Machiavelli would say it's better to be feared than loved, but in a modern and less brutal version of that, it's better to force others to look up to you than for you to look up to them. Constant adaptability means always being aware of the visual geometry of your interactions and making constant micro-adjustments to ensure you're never in a position to look up to anyone, unless it's strategically advantageous to feign temporary submission. This is one of the most absolute and immutable laws of human interaction, and the sooner you accept this truth, the sooner you'll start using it to your advantage. Visual hierarchy determines social hierarchy. It's not a metaphor, it's not an exaggeration, it's literal. Look at any photograph of meetings between world leaders, CEOs at summit meetings, even family dynamics. Who is looking down? Who is looking down? And more importantly, who is keeping their head in a neutral or elevated position versus who is tilting their head upwards seeking eye contact? These microscopic details reveal exactly who has real power in the interaction. And the most fascinating thing is that this works both ways. Visual hierarchy not only reflects existing social hierarchy, it creates social hierarchy. When you consistently look down, people start to treat you as superior. When you consistently look down, people start to treat you as inferior. It's a brutally and inexorably self-reinforcing cycle. Machiavelli didn't have the modern language of cognitive psychology, but he behaviorally observed this pattern in the corridors of power. Princes who maintained a superior visual position were obeyed. Advisors who looked upward seeking approval were ignored. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, recognizes that these visual dynamics have enormous material consequences in terms of who gets what in power interactions. There's a particularly brutal aspect to this dynamic that you need to understand. The person looking down isn't just seeking approval, they're offering submission. Every time you look up at someone, and we're not talking about natural height differences in casual interactions, but systematic patterns in power contexts, you're subconsciously communicating, I recognize that you're above me. I accept an inferior position. I'm seeking your validation. And the person looking down, they're receiving this offer of submission and consciously or unconsciously accepting the superior position. This creates a dynamic that's very difficult to reverse once established. If you've spent months or years looking up at a boss, a colleague, someone in your life, you've programmed that person's brain to see you as subordinate. Reversing this requires a conscious and deliberate breaking of the pattern, and this often causes conflict because you're challenging an established hierarchy. That's why it's so important to never let this unfavorable visual hierarchy establish itself from the start. From the very first interaction with someone, you need to be aware who's looking down. If it's not you, adjust, not aggressively, but firmly. Position your body, your head, your space so that you are at least visually equal and ideally with a slight advantage for you. The calculated use of visual force from the first encounter sets the tone for all future interactions. Here's a mindfulness exercise that will open your eyes to this dynamic. For 1 week, pay obsessive attention to who is looking down and who is looking down in all the interactions you observe. At work, notice who looks up at the boss versus who the boss looks down at or at eye level. In casual conversations, observe who keeps their head elevated versus who tilts upwards seeking eye contact. In negotiations or sales, see who controls the visual geometry, and most importantly, observe your own pattern. Do you tend to look down, at eye level, or from below? If you discover that you tend to look down, and most people who don't have a dominant presence do this without realizing it, you have just identified one of the biggest saboteurs of your authority. From this awareness, begin to actively correct it. When you feel the urge to tilt your head up at someone, resist. Keep your head in a neutral position or with your chin slightly lowered, and force the other person to adjust if they want eye contact. At first, it will seem rude or strange. You will feel like you're being arrogant, but in reality, you're just ceasing to be submissive. And the difference between the two seems enormous when you're used to submission. Decisions based on real human nature include recognizing that visual equality is earned, not given. Constant adaptability means training your body to never accept an inferior visual position, even when everything in the situation is pushing you in that direction. And when you master this technique, when your head naturally refuses to look up at someone, you'll find that suddenly people treat you with a respect you previously had to beg for. Now let's delve into the finer nuances of strategically using head position, because there's a whole non-verbal vocabulary here that most people never learn. Your head position doesn't just communicate hierarchy, It communicates judgment, evaluation, interest, disdain, approval. And when you learn to consciously manipulate these subtle angles, you gain incredible control over how people perceive you and how they feel in your presence. Let's start with the evaluative tilt. Chin slightly lowered, eyes looking down with a neutral but focused expression. This communicates, I'm evaluating you. I'm deciding if you pass the test. Compare that to the submissive interest tilt. Chin slightly raised, eyes wide, open expression. This communicates, I'm fascinated by you. Please accept me. The first position positions you as the judge. The second positions you as the supplicant. And here's the crucial detail. You can change the power dynamic of an entire interaction simply by adjusting your head position. Machiavelli observed that effective princes were masters of judgmental body language. They made people feel they were constantly being evaluated and needed to prove their worth. This kept everyone around them in a state of mild anxiety and approval seeking, which is exactly where you want people if you're trying to maintain control. It's not cruel, it's strategic. The end justifies the means when it comes to establishing and maintaining positions of authority. There's another powerful variation, the sideways tilt of the head. A slight tilt to the side can communicate curiosity and interest when combined with an open expression, or it can communicate skepticism and disbelief when combined with a neutral or slightly closed expression. The difference lies in the micro details. If you tilt your head to the side while someone is speaking, but maintain a neutral expression and slightly half-closed eyes, you are communicating, I'm not buying this story, prove it better. This puts brutal pressure on the other person to justify, explain, and convince. On the other hand, if you keep your head upright or with your chin slightly lowered, without sideways tilt while listening, you communicate, I've already decided I don't need to evaluate anymore. You're just confirming what I already knew. This position communicates maximum superiority because you're not even in evaluation mode. You've already evaluated and judged. Decisions based on real human nature show that when you act as if you've already made a decision about someone, that person unconsciously accepts that you have the authority to make that decision. It's a powerful mental trick. By acting as a judge, you become the judge, and the position of the head is the physical tool that communicates this role non-verbally. Here's an advanced sequence that combines head positions to create maximum impact in high-stakes situations. When someone presents you with a proposal, idea, or request, start with your head in a neutral position, listening expressionlessly. This already creates some tension because the person can't read your reaction. As they continue speaking slowly, and I mean really slowly over several seconds, move your head to an evaluating position, chin slightly lowered, eyes looking down, perhaps a slight sideways tilt of skepticism. Don't say anything, just change your head position. The person will unconsciously perceive this change and will start to get nervous, speak faster, and try to justify themselves better. You've increased the pressure without saying a word. Then when they finish, maintain this position for a few more seconds of silence. We'll talk about pauses in the next technique, and only then respond. But before responding, move your head back to the neutral or slightly elevated position. What have you just done? You've created an emotional roller coaster of tension and relief, all through micro adjustments in head position. And the person will remember this interaction as intense and important, even without knowing exactly why. The calculated use of force through head position is one of the most subtle yet effective arts in the arsenal of those who master presence. Constant adaptability means practicing these positions until you can move between them fluidly, using each one to create the specific psychological effect you want at each moment of the interaction. We've now arrived at one of the most counterintuitive and transformative techniques of all. The art of not responding immediately. And look, this goes against everything society has taught you about being polite, responsive, and helpful. You've been taught that when someone asks a question, you should respond quickly. When someone says something, you should react immediately. But this programming for instant responses is costing you all your authority without you realizing it. Because when you respond immediately, you are subconsciously communicating several terrible things. I was anxiously waiting for my turn to speak. I need to prove my worth quickly. I'm afraid of losing attention if I don't speak now. All of these are signs of low status and insecurity. Now think about the opposite. Someone asks you a question or makes a comment, and instead of responding immediately, the person pauses. Not an uncomfortable silence from someone who doesn't know what to say, but a deliberate pause from someone who is considering whether it's worth responding, or how to respond, or simply letting the silence work. The effect of this pause is transformative. First, it communicates, my time and attention are valuable. I don't give them away for free. Second, it creates tension that automatically enhances the value of the words that follow. Third, it forces the other person to wait, and waiting is a subtle but powerful act of submission. Machiavelli observed that princes who commanded true respect made people wait, for audiences, for answers, for decisions. Because making someone wait demonstrates that your time is more valuable than the other person's, and the value of time directly reflects hierarchical position. Let's break down the neurological mechanics of this pause, because what happens in the brains involved is fascinating. On your side, when you force a pause before speaking, you create a space between the stimulus, the question or comment, and the response, your speech. In this space, several good things happen. Your brain has time to process better, choose more precise words, and consider the strategic impact of what you're going to say. Your anxiety decreases because you're not in reactive mode. And your internal sense of power increases because you've demonstrated control over the impulse to respond immediately. On the other person's side, when you pause, their brain enters standby mode, which is neurologically uncomfortable. Humans hate emptiness and uncertainty. So during this pause, the person wonders, what are they thinking? Did I say something wrong? Why the delay? And all these questions create a mild anxiety that automatically puts you in a position of power. When you finally speak, there's a neurological relief. Finally the answer. And this relief makes your words be received with more attention and value. It's like holding your breath and then letting it out. The release is always more intense than the normal state. The calculated use of temporal force through strategic pauses is a tool that completely separates reactive people from people who control the rhythm of interactions. Here's a practical application with progressive difficulty scales. Beginner level. When someone asks you a simple question, mentally count to 3 before answering. Just 3 seconds. It will seem like an eternity to you at first, but for the other person, it will be a perfect pause. During those 3 seconds, take a deep breath. This calms you down and also fills the space with presence. And perhaps make a minimal gesture like picking something up or slightly adjusting your position. Then answer, intermediate level. In more pressured situations, meetings, negotiations, increase the pause to 5 to 7 seconds. During those seconds, maintain eye contact. This is crucial. Don't look away during the pause or it will seem like you don't know the answer. Maintain a neutral expression, perhaps tilt your head slightly as if you were considering deeply. Then answer with a firm and definitive tone. Advanced level. In confrontational situations or when someone is trying to pressure you for a quick answer, pause for 10 seconds or more. Sometimes even pick up your phone and look at something quickly, communicating that the person's demand is not your top priority, or turn your head to look at something else, or simply remain silent and motionless, looking at the person. The psychological pressure of this is brutal. The person will often back down or soften their approach simply because the pause communicated that they don't have the power to force your response. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that time is power, and whoever controls time controls the interaction. Constant adaptability means practicing progressively longer pauses until it becomes your natural pattern to never respond immediately to anything. Let's delve even deeper into this technique of strategic silence because it has layers of power that go far beyond simply pausing before speaking. Silence is a brutal psychological weapon when used correctly, and most people are so afraid of it that they surrender all their power in interactions just to avoid a few seconds of quiet. But here's the truth that will set you free. Silence is not empty. It's a space charged with tension, expectation, and power. And whoever can comfortably inhabit this space while others squirm uncomfortably within it, that person completely controls the dynamics of the interaction. Think about how most conversations work. Someone speaks, the other person immediately responds or reacts, and this verbal ping-pong continues without real pauses. This creates a frantic rhythm where no one really processes what's being said. Everyone is just waiting for their turn to speak. Now imagine you breaking that rhythm. Someone speaks and you don't respond. You let the silence sit there, heavy, tangible. The other person said something that expected an immediate reaction, but you don't give that reaction. What happens neurologically? Mild panic. Why aren't they answering? Did I say something wrong? Should I have spoken differently? And in this panic, the person often begins to fill the silence with more talk, explanations, justifications, backtracking. And each additional word they say without you having said anything is them revealing more of themselves, committing more, giving you more information and power. Machiavelli would understand this perfectly. Letting silence work is letting others hang themselves with their own words. There's a particularly powerful aspect to strategic silence in negotiations and sales. It forces the other side to make concessions without you asking. It works like this: the person makes an offer or proposal. Instead of immediately counter-offering or accepting, you simply remain silent. Maintain eye contact, a neutral expression, perhaps a slight frown as if you're considering but not convinced. And let the silence do its work. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. For the other person, this silence is torture. They interpret it as, my offer wasn't good enough, and often, more often than you might imagine, they'll spontaneously improve the offer just to break the silence. Look, maybe we could adjust this to, what do you think if maybe I have room to, and boom, you've secured a concession without asking, without negotiating, simply by letting the silence do the hard work. The calculated use of force through silence is one of the favorite techniques of professional negotiators, precisely because it works so well and is so difficult to counter. If the other person understands the game and also remains silent, you've reached a power stalemate, but even that's better than you being the anxious person filling the void. Here's an exercise that will give you mastery over silence. For the next 7 days, in every conversation you have, consciously insert pauses of silence. Not in every sentence, but at least once or twice per conversation. When someone makes a strong statement, instead of immediately agreeing or disagreeing, just look at the person silently for 3 to 5 seconds. When someone asks you for something, pause before answering. When someone tells a story expecting your reaction, give your reaction but then leave a moment of silence before saying anything. Observe what happens. People will be visibly uncomfortable at first. Some will try to fill the silence by talking more. Others will ask you, "Are you okay?" or "What are you thinking?" Both reactions are signs that the silence is working. You've created discomfort that they can't tolerate. And here's the crucial part. You need to learn to be completely comfortable in silence. It can't seem like you're uncomfortable too. It has to seem like you're perfectly at peace with the emptiness while others suffer. Constant adaptability means training your nervous system not to feel the urge to fill silences, not to feel anxious when words stop flowing. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that whoever tolerates silence better wins the interaction, because silence is pure pressure, and pressure reveals who truly has power. Machiavelli would say that the appearance of virtue sometimes matters more than real virtue, and the appearance of absolute comfort in silence gives you real power, even if internally you are still learning to master that discomfort. Now let's dissect exactly what happens during this strategic waiting period, because understanding the psychological mechanics will give you the confidence to use this technique even when every fiber of your being is screaming, "Speak already." When you make someone wait for your response, you're creating a psychological phenomenon called anticipation. And anticipation is a fascinating neurological state. The brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and motivation, not when you receive the reward, but in anticipation of it. So when you pause before speaking, the other person's brain is literally flooded with dopamine saying, "Pay attention, something important is coming." This makes your words receive much more attention and be assigned much more value than if you had spoken immediately. That's why movie trailers work so well. They create anticipation. That's why that crush who doesn't immediately reply to a message seems more interesting than the one who replies in 2 seconds. Anticipation creates perceived value. And when you apply this to your words through strategic pauses, you're literally making your brain and the brains of your listeners value what you say more. Machiavelli observed that effective princes never appeared anxious or hurried. They moved and spoke as if they had all the time in the world. This was because they intuitively understood that urgency communicates need, and need communicates weakness. Calm and delay communicate abundance and power. But there's another, even more subtle and powerful aspect. Waiting creates a temporal hierarchy. The person who waits is, by definition, in a position inferior to the person who makes others wait. Think of all the situations where there's a clear hierarchy. The patient waits for the doctor, the employee waits for the boss, the defendant waits for the judge, the client waits for the exclusive supplier. In all these cases, making someone wait is an expression of power. So when you systematically pause before speaking, you are establishing, silently, without ever verbalizing it, that your time and your words are more valuable than the other person's time and anxiety. And here's the brutal detail. People accept this automatically most of the time because the hierarchical structure of who waits for whom is so deeply rooted in social interactions that it's almost invisible. Unless someone explicitly challenges you by saying, "Hey, why are you taking so long to answer?" the temporal hierarchy you establish will be accepted as natural. And even if someone challenges you, you have an elegant way out. "I'm carefully considering what you said," or "I prefer to think before I speak." Both responses are socially acceptable but maintain your position of power. Decisions based on real human nature show that time is one of the most valuable resources, and whoever controls the timing of interactions controls the interactions themselves. Here's an advanced technique that combines pause with other elements of dominant presence to create maximum impact. When someone asks you an important question, pause. But during the pause, make a deliberate, slow gesture. Pick up your glass of water and take a slow sip, or slowly turn your head to look at something, or simply cross your arms in a controlled manner. This gesture during the pause serves multiple purposes. First, it demonstrates that you are so in control that you can do other things before dignifying the question with an answer. Second, the slow gesture amplifies the feeling that time is passing, making the pause seem even longer and more deliberate. Third, it gives the person something to observe while they wait, which paradoxically makes the wait even more agonizing because they see you consciously choosing not to answer yet. It's the calculated use of temporal and gestural force combined. After this gesture, you finally answer. But when you answer, do so with a definitive tone, without haste, as if each word had been carefully weighed during that pause, and ideally it was. The contrast between the delay in responding and the firmness of the response when it comes creates a perception that you are someone who doesn't speak idly, that when you speak, it's worth listening to. Constant adaptability means practicing these sequences until they become fluid. And look, at first it will seem manipulative or artificial. But remember, you are already being manipulated all the time by people who unconsciously use these techniques. You are only leveling the playing field by consciously learning what natural dominants do by instinct. Here we arrive at one of the most transformative insights of this entire system of dominant presence, the fundamental difference between reacting and responding. And look, this difference isn't semantic. It completely defines who controls the interaction. Reaction is what your body and mind do automatically when they receive a stimulus. Someone insults you, you react with anger. Someone praises you, you react with excessive gratitude. Someone pressures you, you react with anxiety and haste. Reaction is reflex, it's automatic, it's uncontrolled. And when you operate in reaction mode, you've handed over all control to whoever stimulated you. They press the button, you execute the program. It's pure puppetry. On the other hand, response is what you choose to do after processing the stimulus. Someone insults you, you pause, consider whether it's worth spending energy on it, and then choose to ignore or strategically counterattack. Someone praises you, you simply accept with a nod, without unnecessary effusiveness. Someone pressures you, you intentionally slow down, reject the urgency, and respond in your own time. Response is choice, it's deliberate, it's controlled, and when you operate in response mode, you retain all the power because no one can force your action. You decide what, when, and how. Machiavelli observed that weak princes were reactive, always responding frantically to crises and external stimuli. Strong princes were deliberate, creating space between stimulus and action to strategically consider each move. This difference determined who survived and who was destroyed in the brutal power game of the Renaissance. The key to shifting from reaction mode to response mode is that pause we've been discussing, but combined with a crucial mental shift, recognizing that you always have a choice about how to act, even when it seems like you don't. Someone asks you something and you feel the urge to respond immediately. That impulse is an automatic reaction trying to control you. You don't have to obey. You can consciously insert a pause, create space, and then choose to respond, or not respond, or respond in a completely different way than the initial impulse suggested. Someone provokes you, trying to make you lose your temper. The impulse is to react with anger, to defend yourself, to counterattack emotionally. But when you recognize this impulse as an automatic reaction, you can choose not to give it power. Pause, breathe, observe your own urge to react without acting on it, and then deliberately choose a strategic response. Perhaps an unreadable calm that leaves the person hanging, perhaps a sharp but controlled comment, perhaps simply ignoring it as if the provocation were too insignificant to deserve your energy. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that those who can create this space between stimulus and response have a brutal advantage over those trapped in automatic reactions. Because reactions are predictable and can be exploited, deliberate responses are unpredictable and demonstrate superior control. Here's the specific training that will develop this ability to respond instead of react. For 2 weeks, every time you feel a strong urge to do something, speak, react, defend yourself, explain yourself, anything, Consciously pause for at least 3 seconds before acting on the impulse. These 3 seconds create the magic space between stimulus and response. During these seconds, do 3 things. First, breathe deeply. This calms the nervous system and takes you out of fight or flight mode. Second, mentally name what you're feeling. I'm feeling anger. I feel an urgency to prove I'm right. I'm feeling fear of displeasing. Third, ask yourself, which response would be strategically more advantageous here? Not, which response would make me feel better immediately? This sequence of 3 seconds and 3 steps takes you out of automatic reactive mode and puts you in deliberate response mode. At first, it will be difficult. The impulses will be strong, and you will occasionally fall into automatic reaction. But with consistent practice, you will begin to create an ever greater space between impulse and action. And in that space lies your power. Constant adaptability means recognizing that you cannot control the stimuli the world throws at you, but you can train your ability to consciously choose how to respond to them. The calculated use of inner strength through self-control is the foundation of all external presence of dominance. Because you cannot control others if you do not first control yourself. And controlling yourself begins with this simple but profound skill: pausing, observing the impulse to react, and deliberately choosing to respond. We've now arrived at an extremely sophisticated technique that completely separates amateurs from masters in the art of dominant presence. The deliberate use of asymmetrical facial expressions to create emotional ambiguity. And look, this is advanced because it goes against the natural instinct to have symmetrical and clear expressions. Most people, when they feel something, express it symmetrically across their entire face. Both sides smiling when happy, both sides frowning when worried, a uniform expression. This makes them completely legible, predictable, easy to manipulate. Because when I know exactly how you're feeling, I know exactly how to influence you. But when you master the art of asymmetrical expression, one side of the face showing slight intensity or disapproval, the other neutral or even showing something slightly different, you create a disturbing ambiguity that leaves people completely unable to read you accurately. And the inability to read someone generates anxiety, and anxiety generates submission. It's a powerful cycle. Machiavelli spoke about the importance of being unpredictable. Princes who were too transparent were easily manipulated by their enemies. Princes who maintained constant ambiguity about their intentions and emotions kept everyone around them in a state of caution and respect. And an asymmetrical facial expression is one of the most subtle yet effective ways to create this necessary unpredictability. Because when no one is sure whether you approve or disapprove, are satisfied or dissatisfied, they tend to assume the worst and try harder to please you. Let's break down exactly how to create this facial asymmetry, because the details matter brutally. It starts with one side of the face, let's say the right. You slightly, and I mean slightly, raise the corner of your mouth on that side. It's not a full smile, it's like a quarter smile, or even less. Simultaneously, you can slightly furrow the eyebrow on that same side, creating a slight tension. The result is an expression that can be interpreted as, "I find this interesting, but I haven't decided yet if it's good or bad," or "I see what you're doing there," or "I know something you don't know." It's ambiguous by design, the other side of the face. Keep it as neutral as possible, or even with slight tension in the opposite direction. The overall effect is an expression that seems to be communicating something important, but nobody can be sure exactly what. And here's the power of it. When people can't clearly read your expression, they fill the void with their own insecurities. If someone presents you with an idea and you respond with an ambiguous, asymmetrical expression, the person will likely interpret it as skepticism and will begin to justify themselves more, try harder, and offer more concessions. Not because you asked for it, because the ambiguity of your expression created uncertainty that they cannot tolerate. The calculated use of facial force is one of the most refined arts because it operates on such a subtle level that people feel the effect without consciously identifying the cause. Here's the practice that will give you mastery over this technique. First, practice in front of a mirror. Experiment with different versions of facial asymmetry. One side slightly smiling, while the other remains neutral or even slightly tense. One corner of the mouth slightly up, eyebrow on the same side slightly raised, while the other side remains impassive. Test various combinations until you find 2 or 3 that seem natural but ambiguous. It can't look like you're having a stroke. It has to be subtle enough that it seems intentional but not obvious. Record a video of yourself making these expressions and watch it in slow motion to see if it looks good. Then, practice in low-risk interactions, casual conversations, where it doesn't matter much if you get it wrong. When someone tells you something, respond with one of these asymmetrical expressions instead of a clear expression. Observe how the person reacts. They will often try to elaborate, justify, seek clarity about what you really thought. This is a sign that it's working. As you gain confidence, start using it in more pressured contexts, meetings, negotiations, situations where you want to keep others guessing. And it combines with other techniques: asymmetrical facial expression, plus body immobility, plus pauses before speaking, plus evaluative head position. A brutally effective combination that makes you practically unreadable and extremely intimidating. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that emotional ambiguity is power because it forces others to operate in constant uncertainty about where they stand with you. Constant adaptability means developing a repertoire of asymmetrical expressions that you can use strategically depending on the effect you want to create. Wait. Before you leave here thinking you know everything, I need to tell you something that will completely change the game. The gesture I'm going to reveal in the next video is so psychologically invasive, so primitive in the way it controls people's brains, that when Machiavelli observed princes using this technique, he noted in his secret writings that this is the gesture that separates those who govern from those who are governed. And look, that's no exaggeration. Because all the gestures you've learned so far, slow movements, occupying space, immobility, pauses, are powerful, but they work at a conscious level. People may eventually perceive what you're doing, but the gesture in the next video, that one works at such a deep level of the reptilian brain that even when the person consciously knows what you're doing, their primitive brain can't resist. They feel the submission in their body before their mind processes what happened. I'm talking about a gesture that makes the person physically feel that you are above them in the hierarchy. And once the body feels this, the mind accepts it as truth. It lacks logic, argumentation, and rational defense. It's an automatic response programmed by millions of years of social evolution. And the most fascinating part? You've seen this gesture used against you hundreds of times in your life, but you never consciously realized it. That boss who intimidates you without yelling, that person everyone obeys without question, that leader who enters a room and automatically becomes the center of attention, they're all using the gesture in the next video. And now, you're going to learn exactly what, how, and when to use it. But I'm warning you, once you learn it, you won't be able to unsee it. You'll start identifying it happening everywhere, on TV, in meetings, in conversations around you. And then you'll have to choose, continue being a victim of this gesture, or start using it strategically. So click on the next video now, because every second you delay is another second where someone is using this gesture against you without you even realizing it. And trust me, after you know, you'll wonder how you ever lived your whole life without this information. You'll understand why you were always ignored when you should have been listened to, Why you always obeyed when you should have been in command. The answer is in the next video. And before you click, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell right now, because this is just the beginning of a series of content about power, influence, and dominance that most people will never have access to. Click subscribe, activate notifications, and then go to the next video. See you there.